And one thing I find really annoying about people with Dr. Shala's mindset is they come out and defend Chris Kaba, a career criminal, but as soon as Kemi gets her achievement, somehow that makes them feel ashamed. And out of Chris Kaba and Kemi, I know which one makes me feel ashamed, and it's not Kemi.
Absolutely delighted today to be joined by Jamila, Robertson and Chris Rose. They are both rising stars in the Conservative Party movement, and we'll be talking to them in just 1 second. But breaking right now, growing backlash over Dawn Butler's comments regarding the new Conservative Party leader, Kemi Badenoch. Now, you'll remember that she described Kemi Badenoch as blackface of white supremacy. It was an absolutely revolting post. She retweeted it from Nels Abbey, a London-based Nigerian journalist. I don't need to share the whole thing with you, but this isn't just Dawn Butler who's doing this, unfortunately. It's a whole load of hard left figures who seem to believe that Kemi Badenoch no longer is black because she's the leader of the Conservative Party. I would argue that perhaps the most egregious was Dr. Shola.
Even though she looks African on the outside, they put whiteness inside her. That's right, that's right. That is not racism. No, that is blackface. That is the new kind of blackface. That's right. The only way is up for Kemi. She understands how the system works. Kemi is going for Prime Minister, so please get out of her way. If you're Black British looking for reparation, go and repair yourself, or Kemi is not the one for you. If you're Black British fighting systemic injustice, Kemi is not the one for you. Get out of her way.
Goodness me. So, Jamila Robertson, as I say, a rising star in the Conservative Party. And Chris Rose, you have to know him because he has one of the best British accounts on X. I am like glued to it all day, every day. So brilliant to have you both on Outspoken for the first time. Jamila, you were a supporter of Kemi Badenoch?
I was, yes. I was actually torn between Kemi and Rob right until the end, but I opted for Kemi in the end.
Which obviously turned out to be the right call. And what is your reaction to, let's be honest about it, this egregious racism?
Yeah, it's really disappointing. I actually stood in Brent East against Dawn Butler in the election just gone, and she was perfectly nice to me. But it is really disappointed that instead of congratulating Kemi, that she's gone on to retweet such a disgusting tweet. It feels to me like this is the only way she can get any publicity, and it's quite sad.
But the thing is, Chris, look at this from Lee Anderson today. He posted on X, remember this? Dawn Butler, you called for the whip to be removed from me over Islamophobic comments, yet your government has no definition of Islamophobia. What have you been up to lately? And isn't that the point, Chris, that it is so often these people on the left that constantly want to remove free speech from people, that want to cancel people, yet when they do the same thing, it doesn't happen.
That's exactly the thing. I mean, we have probably the most hypocritical government in my lifetime, because they're very vocal when it comes to, a Tory that says something they don't like. But as soon as someone on their rank does it, they're not as vocal. Like you had yesterday, Yvette Cooper saying that she not heard of this. And even when Nick read out the tweet to her, she still said, oh, I'm not sure if it's racism. If a Tory MP had said something similar, she would have been absolutely on the ball to call it racism. But when it's somebody in their own rank, it's, they need more context all the time. And I think it's astonishing. 48 hours later, Keir Starmer still hasn't removed the whip. He's just shown himself to be very weak. Increasingly, every week, he's just more and more weak as the weeks go by. I mean, it's absolutely pathetic that he's not removed the whip yet.
First, though, digestive issues are caused by a potential toxin that's in all of the, quote, healthy foods that scientists have been telling us to eat with a fraudulent food pyramid for the longest time. And this potential toxin causes digestive issues. According to Dr. GUNDRY, a world-renowned cardiologist, this is affecting millions of people nationwide. Warning signs include weight gain and fatigue and digestive discomfort and stiff joints, even skin problems, Well, Dr. Gundry explains these side effects are often mistaken for normal signs of aging because digestive issues develop usually over a matter of years and sometimes even decades. I can assure you that the damage is probably caused by these health foods and it's far from normal. The good news is you can easily help fix the problem from your own home. It's very simple. You just have to know which foods are actually healthy and which contain this hidden potential toxin. So you can go find this yourself at gutcleanseprotocol.com/outspoken. That's gutcleanseprotocol.com/outspoken. I've put the link in our show notes on YouTube and Rumble, or you can click if you're watching the QR code. Because after years of research, Dr. Gundry has decided to release an informative video to the public, free and uninterrupted, showcasing exactly which foods you need to avoid. Go find that video at gutcleanseprotocol.com/outspoken and click on the link in the description below. Ben Habib, the former deputy leader of Reform UK, posted on X about this, and specifically about the Keir Starmer point, saying, no wonder Starmer's reluctant to move the whip from Dawn Butler Brent. He's content with extreme prejudice as long as it's his prejudice. He agrees with Butler, this government will not survive 5 years. And the thing is, Jamila, I do wonder if that is true, because look at Diane Abbott. There was absolutely no concerns about the fact that she had been blatantly anti-Semitic because she's the mother of the house. And I just wonder if you feel that there are double standards when it comes to black women on the left.
Oh, yeah, totally. I think if you look at the kind of furore from the BBC when, Frank Hester said what he did, I think they were talking about it for about 3 months. And I haven't really seen them giving the same energy to Dawn Butler's comments. It is very disappointing. And I think the problem with the hard left is that they preach tolerance, but they are the most intolerant of anyone else.
Yeah, Christina Jordan, the former Brexit Party MEP, was also particularly upset about this. She wrote, and she quoted from what Dawn Butler had retweeted, saying, even though she looks African on the outside, they put whiteness inside her. This video is vile, sickening, and repugnant. Why on earth did London South Bank University give this racist an honorary doctorate? And that's what I cannot understand, Chris. Like, Dr. Shola, can we just be honest about this, right? Dr. Shola is an extremist, and she is an extreme racist. I mean, in fact, yesterday, David Starkey on the show described her as a fascist. Now, this is a woman who still gets invited to sit on the panel of the Jeremy Vine show, who is still completely accepted in polite society and academic society. I mean, I guess the point I'm making, Chris, is the hypocrisy is just so blatant now.
Absolutely. I mean, as I said continuously, if a white person had said similar stuff to what as Dr. Shola has said, they would not be invited to panels. They'd been cancelled ages ago. And, over the last year, she's shown herself to be quite anti-Semitic as well. So it's not just white people she comes after, it's also Jews as well now. And I think to myself, getting those awards just shows the double standards in society. And, one thing I find really annoying about people with Dr. Shola's mindset is they come out and defend Chris Kaba, a career criminal. But as soon as Kemi gets her achievement, somehow that makes them feel ashamed. And out of Chris Kaba and Kemi, I know which one makes me feel ashamed, and it's not Kemi.
Of course. No, very, very good point. Now, look, you've obviously both stuck by the Conservative Party through very difficult times. Not everyone convinced by Kemi Badenoch as leader. Rupert Lowe, the Reform UK MP, for example, posted after her win saying, Badenoch wins. I have never been more confident that Reform will outright win the next general election. And Nigel Farage, who I believe was much, much more concerned about the threat of Robert Jenrick sort of outflanking him on the right, had this to say about Kemi's.
As projected and indeed delivered, Kemi Badenoch is the leader of His Majesty's loyal opposition, which means the Conservative Party have turned their backs on the idea of leaving the ECHR because that's what Jenrick stood for. What you're going to get with Kemi Badenoch is more of the same. Pretty much exactly the same as the last 14 years. I've got to tell you, one thing they don't understand, it isn't about the individuals. The Conservative brand is broken.
And there was more. There was more.
The Tories have chosen. They've chosen Kemi Badenoch over Robert Jenrick. What that means is the Conservative Party is now committed to staying in the ECHR, which means we can't deport foreign criminals, and they will never, ever stop the votes. So if you voted Jenrick or wanted Jenrick to win, you now realise the direction of the Conservative Party. It is now time to join Reform. Do it.
But Badenoch herself, in her first interview since becoming leader, wasn't having any of it.
Nigel Farage says that you are more of the same, no change.
Well, I think that's actually quite a hilarious comment.
Hilarious, why?
Yeah, yes, it is, because I'm obviously not more of the same. And I think that shows that he doesn't actually know what to say in response to either me or some of the principles which I have set out. Nigel Farage and the success of reform are a symptom of the Conservative Party, in my view, not being clear enough and consistent enough about our values and about how we were using those Conservative values to deliver for the British people. If we get this right, then I think people will start to see that reform is nothing but a spoiler for the Conservatives and just creates more and more Labour government.
See, I just don't know that old school thinking when it comes to Reform UK, Jamila, is going to stick. Like, surely she needs to stop slagging off Farage and think of a different strategy, because this is going to have to end in some sort of deal, isn't it?
Well, I don't know about that. I think, look, Farage probably, he kind of fired the first shot on that one. And I'm sure in response to his videos, I'm sure he had one for the other way around as well, that if Kemi had lost, I'm sure he would have said exactly the same thing, but about Robert. I think with Farage, I think she's right. I don't think he knew what to say. And I totally agree with her. It's all about communicating our values, like knocking on doors. People were saying to us, they're not going to vote for us because they don't feel like we're conservative anymore. And I think as long as we are projecting that and convince the great British public that we are conservative again, I think they will have our backs.
Chrissy, I feel like I'm pretty in tune with your politics, right? It's not often I disagree with you. And I thought you'd be all in with reform at this point.
No, it's I think I'd give the Conservatives more of a chance. It's like with Kemi, I think she's trying to rebuild the trust towards the Conservative Party and the public first, and then show that the party is united, and then build a platform then. Because, you know, in the past, we've had several Tory MPs who said, we're going to leave the ECHR, and then nothing happened. And that builds distrust over time. So I think she's very careful about not making promises that she can't make at the moment.
Yeah, but the thing is, look at this graphic of Conservative Party memberships. Jamila, come on. You've got to be bold. That's what I don't understand. I loved how bold Jenrick was.
I did too, and that's one of the things I really liked about him. But I think under Kemi, we are going to be bold. I think she's going to be a slow burn. She's going to get back to basics. And one of the first things we do need to do is try and show everyone our brand and rebrand in a way that gets people joining us again. You know, Farage's only tactic is to try and steal our councillors, try and steal people who are already standing for us, like Lee Anderson. So his tactic is, he knows that the Conservatives are better. He's just trying to take them.
The problem is, I feel that you've got some people in the party who remain on cloud cuckoo land, right? They are sort of the Conservatives who are not actually Conservatives in any way. They need to go off and join the Liberal Democratic Party. And you know, one of the absolute worst is George Osborne. And I was blown away by the former Chancellor earlier this week. I actually cannot believe that this wasn't a spoof. Promise you, this is not AI. This is real video. I'm about to call you George Osborne predicting that the solution for the Conservatives is Rishi Sunak, who just had the biggest election defeat in Conservative history, to be made leader again before the next election. Watch.
But I'm told he's very committed to staying as an MP. He actually used Prime Minister's questions this week to go through the things that he really cares about, like technology, like cricket in state schools. And I've heard it said, well, maybe, you know, the party will turn back to Rishi Sunak in a couple of years' time. then maybe he will actually be the Tory party leader at the next general election, right? And the polls already suggest that he's more popular than Keir Starmer. And you often hear from MPs the view privately, whoever we pick now anyway is not going to be the person who makes it through this parliament, because the Tory party often ditches its leader if they don't do well. So, in fact, maybe Rishi Sunak is going to be the Tory candidate in the next election.
Look, I mean, come on, Chris. And you have to deal with sort of delusional fools like him who are just not in touch with where the British public are at all. I mean, Rishi Sunak has never won a big election.
No, yes. I mean, he's never won a Tory leadership either. But, you know, he's doing much better. He was doing much better when he was leader of the opposition. I'll give him that. But as Prime Minister, he had his chance and he didn't perform well. So the idea of him being the leader again would just be absolutely nonsense. I don't know why George is saying that at all. I disagree with that, and I do think the Tory party, I don't think they'll be as quick to ditch their leaders now because there's much fewer MPs. So I think they'll think a bit more, not be hasty, because they've been hasty in the past with Boris Johnson, and I think they still regret that, to be honest.
But Jamila, then we also had this week William Hague coming out against Donald Trump and supporting Kamala Harris. Michael Gove, the new editor of The Spectator, also said he wanted Kamala Harris in power. Now, look, I know Trump isn't everyone's flavour, right? I get that. He's my flavour. I am absolutely hoping and praying that he wins tonight. I think he's the only person right now who can save the West. But do we really need Conservatives coming out plumping for Kamala Harris when we know that the UK will be treated so much better under a Donald Trump administration? Oh, and plus we also have the beautiful thing that Chris referred to earlier today, that David Lammy would have to go and shake hands and bow down to Farage, the man who he previously referred to as a Nazi.
I'm actually a bit disturbed by the fact that a lot of Conservatives are publicly saying that they're backing Kamala Harris. I think it's one thing to think that and say it at your dinner party or whatever, but to come out, we are Conservatives, we should be united on that. Also, Kamala Harris, I understand the appeal if you're of that kind of left-wing liberal mindset, but for me, every time she speaks, I don't really hear much depth, and I would be very worried about what. Yeah,
you're
I'd
very
be very
polite.
worried about the world and the security of the planet under Kamala Harris. I think that's kind of a scary.
Well, Chris, they've had a puppet president though for the past 4 years, haven't they?
Precisely.
Oh, have we lost you, Chris?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I was going to say we've had a puppet president, Chris, for the past 4 years, haven't we?
We absolutely have, and I think I would hope the US goes in the direction of Trump, because I think we should warn them that they should stay away from Kamala, because they might end up with a Starmer-style government where they regret it, it's incompetent, and they end up being in prison for putting up posts on Twitter that are a bit naughty, as they say. Their free speech is a lot better than ours, and I do think a Kamala presidency will try to destroy that as much as they possibly can.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, she's literally said it. She's literally said she believes in social media censorship, and that sort of chilling threat that has started here in the UK, but which has been, I guess, there's almost like, there's that final dam in the US with the First Amendment. I fear that under Kamala Harris, it would burst. But look, it has been so wonderful to have you both on the show. Jamila Robertson, rising star of the Conservative Party, and Chris Rose, who is just one of the stars of X in the UK. So great to have you both today. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source, and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.